This is a giant chuck steak, and I'm gonna try and smoke it in my barbecue. Ooh, wow.
Thanks to Kamada Joe for sponsoring this episode.
Look at this. This is a giant chuck steak. I mean, let me put it on the side. Look how big that is. That's a lot of meat. Now, I do love a good chuck steak, but I never cooked a chuck steak of this size before. So, of course, I'm gonna give it a try. When smoking a beautiful piece of meat like this, I want two things. Something that has a lot of flavor and gives you a little bit of crusty, dry exterior. And the second thing that I want is juicy, tender beef. And with a tough cut like this, that means I have to take it up to a high temperature so that it falls apart on its own. But let's get started with working on that crust first. First, you're gonna need something that is going to be your binder. And personally, I really like to have mustard as a binder. It has a mild flavor, and that flavor works really well with barbecue seasoning. Now, if you don't like it, you can replace it with mayonnaise, Worcestershire sauce, or even your favorite barbecue sauce. Of course, I'm gonna put mustard on all sides. All sides. The next thing that we need for the crust is seasoning. I want to pack it with as much flavor as I can because there's just so much meat that we need to season. First, I'm going to put on the PitmasterX beef seasoning. That is going to bring us the base layer of flavor. It's very strong and explosive, and it's exactly what I need to season a thick cut of meat like this. Of course, I'm going to season all sides so we get a nice crust everywhere, because first of all, we want this thing to look good. And that's the first thing that you do. If we have a little crevice, put some seasoning in. There we go. Oh, this thing is so heavy. I can't handle it with one hand. Let's do a flip. 1, 2, 3. Oh. 1, 2, 3. You need a barbecue team to operate this thing, but it's going to be a fun roast. Imagine putting this on the table for Thanksgiving instead of that turkey. I know turkey is tradition, but I don't know, man. I would really consider to switch it up this year. And once I got the layer on, I'm going to switch to the PitmasterX Texas seasoning. This is going to give our crust more structure. I'm going to push it on. And now you see why we need a binder. To get that all to stick, you kind of need a layer to form on the outside of this beef. Wow, that is a unit of a piece of meat. The biggest chuck steak I've seasoned so far. Now the big question comes, does this thing fit on that barbecue? Let's get this barbecue fired up and ready to smoke. First, I'm going to take the grill grates out, the heat deflectors out. Then I'm going to add fresh charcoal to the barbecue. And of course, a nice big chunk of beech smoke wood. Then the heat deflectors go back in, as well as the grill grates. Then I'm going to set the temperature to smoke at 120 degrees Celsius. Hit the ignition button, close the top vent almost all the way, plug in a thermometer probe, and then the moment of truth has arrived. Now you can see the barbecue's not up to temperature yet, it's working on it. I think it's a good moment to see if our giant chuck steak even fits on this barbecue. And the barbecue automatically recognizes that you open up the barbecue, so it will automatically stop blowing. All right, there we go. Let's think. Look at that. It fits like a glove. Let's put the thermometer in the core, of course, dead center, close the lid, and now let the barbecue continue with its startup cycle. It took about 10 minutes for the barbecue to come up to temperature, and I'm just now waiting for the beep of the barbecue to tell me that the startup phase is complete and we're moving on to the cooking phase. There it is, exactly to the temperature that we set it to, and now we wait. We keep the lid closed for at least 4 hours. Normally I would say 3 hours, but with a big piece like this, I'm saying 4 hours. It's been 5.5 hours. And we're almost at 70 degrees Celsius, and that is the time that I always check to see how the meat's doing. Do we have the right color? Is the bark developed? Let's go have a look. Oh, wow. That is one impressive piece of meat. Now, it's not strange that it takes 5.5 hours just to get it up to that 70 degrees core temperature. It's such a big hump of meat. It just takes a lot of time. But most important now is that I have the bark that I'm looking for. This crust is all flavor. And that means we can move on to the next phase of the cook. Let's take out, let's take out the butcher's paper. Oh, thank God for backup paper. What a unit. Insane. Before I wrap this up, I'm gonna add a slice of beef tallow to this. Just like that. There we go. Let's go in. see if we can fold it up and get this packed in. This roast is a bit of an odd shape, but we're not going to be deterred by that. I'll wrap it nice and tight. See, so much moisture is already going in the package. Stick that underneath. Look at that. There we go. One big package ready to go back on the barbecue. I'm going to stick the thermometer back in. I'm going to close the lid. But now for the second phase of the cook, I'm going to raise up the temperature inside the barbecue. I'm going to set it to cook at a temperature of 150 degrees Celsius. Let's open the top vent a little bit. And now of course the barbecue is going to do all the work for me, so I don't have to even check. But that higher temperature is going to help me get the roast up a little faster to the temperature that I want it to be at. And at the same time it's going to render the fat in the meat a little faster. And hopefully I get this thing done before the end of the evening. We're now into the 11th hour of cooking, and finally we reached the desired core temperature of 98 degrees Celsius. Look at that pack. Whoa, that is screaming hot. We're not going to open this up right now. I'm going to let this rest first for 2 hours before we actually go into this and take a look at it. But there's one more thing I need to check before we take it off the barbecue, of course, and that is a poke test. Ooh. That is nice and soft. That is going to be perfect. All right, I'm going to put it in some aluminum foil. You can put it in the cooler if you want to. You can even put it in your oven. Set it to 60 degrees Celsius. But I want to open this up after 2 hours, so I'm going to wrap this in aluminum foil. Let it sit on the countertop, and besides letting this rest, that is also going to cool it down a little bit so we can actually eat it. And now again, we wait. Waiting is the name of the game. Meantime, I'm going to switch the barbecue off, close the vents. The time is finally here. Yeah. Ooh, sweaty packages. Let's see if we can open this up carefully. Ooh, wow. Whoa. Wow. That is one juicy looking piece of meat. Now, it's either going to be tearing or it's going to be cutting. That is how close this is. I'm going to be tearing. Oh, look at that. Now that looks excellent. Slice this up. It's a little bit soft to slice, but we'll get there. That's how I like it. Wow. That is one big piece of chuck. We got everything. We got a beautiful bar. We got a great smoke ring. And we got lots of that fall apart juicy tender beef. Wow, that's good. We were 11 hours into the cook. We had 2 hours of waiting, so it became a total of 13 hours of cooking time until we had this done. And that's even without all the preparation, because then we have to calculate another half hour to maybe an hour of preparations, and then you would be at 14 hours. And then you wonder, is it worth spending 14 hours cooking something like this? Personally, I do think so. As a matter of fact, the more time you spend, the better it seems to get. Eat smakelijk and keep on grilling.